big news out of this one was Tim Anderson drew himself back into the lineup, and it was in a rather peculiar way. I know it was his 30th birthday, but Steve, let's talk about hitting second and playing second, Tim Anderson.
You know, a lot of people in the realm of White Sox Twitter very upset, saying that you can't move Tim Anderson down out of the leadoff spot. You can't move him off a shortstop. The defensive change looks like it's going to be a temporary thing. Pedro Grifol talking that he's going to be back at shortstop most likely tomorrow when the team kicks off a 4-game set out on the West Coast against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of Orange County of California of the Pacific time zone. So, that'll come to an end in short order. But Tim, this is a very much of a transition for him and for this club right now. And it's kind of just leaving a lot of us in a position where we don't know what to expect going forward, because the constant for this team since the start of the 2019 season was number 7 at the top of the order playing shortstop. That has changed, and the dynamics around him and this team have changed a lot. And it's going to be fascinating to see what happens if he can get himself out of this offensive malaise that he's been in over the course of the last year and start being the player that we all have seen him be over the course of the last few years.
Yeah, it's definitely just something to watch here, Steve. I remember not too long ago, Pedro Grifol talking about how he was not going to move TA down out of the leadoff spot. A couple days later, your favorite player on the White Sox, Andrew Benintendi, is in the leadoff spot.
Fucking noodle boy.
And then he says the other day that, don't read too much into this position change over to second base. He's dealing with the shoulder injury. I think it came out somewhere that Rick Hahn didn't want him playing shortstop. That in and of itself, I started to read into maybe a little bit more. That Rick Hahn didn't want him playing shortstop because of the injury. We'll see what happens if that's, protecting trade assets or what this is down the road. But I didn't really know that Rick Hahn was getting involved in day-to-day lineup decisions. That was sort of interesting to me. But Steve, could we see Tim Anderson shift over to second base more long-term with Elvis Andrus on the roster? Or do you think that is not really going to be the case here?
I find that to be highly unlikely personally. I feel like this is just a function of the shoulder issue that Tim is dealing with right now. As presently constituted, Tim is still more valuable as a shortstop than he would be as a second baseman. I know the defensive issues and the miscues have been glaring at times this season, but we have also seen him put together stretches of quality defensive play at the shortstop position. They have been marked by levels of inconsistency as well. But if you are talking that it's going to be time potentially to move on from Tim Anderson, you're going to be able to extract more value from him at the shortstop position than at the second base spot. So I would think that in the very near future, like I said, possibly beginning tomorrow, we'll see him back at the shortstop position that he's so accustomed to playing.
Yeah, the defense at second base was also a bit of a problem over the past couple of games. I know he wasn't in the lineup today, but the big play on Friday, Steve, pickoff attempt to second base, ball bounces off of Tim Anderson's glove, winds up in center field. A run scores on this botched pickoff. I can't say that I've really seen that happen too many times over the course of watching White Sox baseball or just baseball in general. It looked like a mental mistake to me. It looked very much like a mental mistake, almost of the same ilk of the botched ground balls that have ate Tim Anderson up at shortstop when the infield's in and there's a play at the plate. He also had another one on Saturday that wound up leading to the game being tied in the top of the 9th inning. We'll get to Saturday's ball game in a minute, but with Tim not in the lineup today at all, the miscues that took place over the weekend for him. It seems like it's just more of the same. It's the same funk, and we're having a lot of trouble getting out of it. That's my observation there.
It's hard to argue with that. Right now, it's very clear that his head simply is not fully in the game the way that we grew accustomed to seeing from him. We saw, and I commented so many times on these airwaves about what an instinctual player that he was, and that for a guy that didn't grow up playing the game his entire life, that he seemed to find himself and put himself in the right position with regularity. We're not seeing that anymore. At the end of the day, Tim's got to find a way to get back to being that guy. Whatever he has to do to mentally reset, to refocus and recalibrate, that's going to be a big part of this, because I think a lot of this is mental right now. A lot has been made about the leg injury that he sustained earlier on in April up in that series in Minnesota. But the mental aspects, the recent interview that was done where some of the off the field stuff was talked about at length, you can't tell me that that isn't something that is weighing on him. And, in the moment, yeah, you're probably not thinking about the answers to those questions when Lucas Giolito's making a pickoff attempt to you, but you can't tell me that you are as 100% mentally focused as you normally would be, given the giant shitstorm that is just circling around him right now.